This is a brief introduction to combined forms. The notion that objects can be created that are the result of different shapes coming together to form new forms, complex forms. For instance, take these three simple forms: a sphere, a short cylinder, and a cone. Now add a truncated cube form, slice the sphere at about a third the mark, and add a cylinder. And they combine to create this form, which we know as a juicer. We'll see another example of this shortly. Again, here are three simple forms: a cone, and a cube, and a sphere. If we modify the cone by truncating it at the top and then add in a cylindrical form, they combine to create this pedestal oil lamp. Most consumer products are combinations of various forms. The old adage goes that form follows function, and there is some truth to that. Round and cylindrical objects often find their way into shapes that are associated with liquids. Just as in the previous example, here are some forms of a cylinder and a sphere, and they combine to form a pitcher. Often these are made of clay and then fired, but there are numerous examples of both glass and metal forms of this. Round forms also lend themselves to objects meant to hold liquids. Here we are at the beginning of a cone and a cylinder. We truncate the cone and add a sphere, which is also truncated, and then the combined form is a vinegar cruet. Some objects are composed of many types of the same forms. They can take on a number of different iterations. Here's a recorder, which is composed largely of cylinders. Many of them are not pure cylinders, but are tapered. Here are also some spherical forms present. Other combined forms are very simple: a teapot and a teacup. I've taught this class many times, and I've often trying to come up with various objects that might interest or spark a bit of creativity in students. A few years back, there were many more students taking this class who were interested in computer game development. That sparked a rash of weapons drawings. Here's the developmental blue line sketch for a thing called a chain gun, some form of multi-barreled instrument of destruction popular in a lot of science fiction and video games. Now we're going to look at some rough diagrams that show the shapes of which some objects were created. First the diagram and then the object. This is the semi-spherical shape for a small portable oven and bread making machine. This one is almost a dead giveaway: a stovetop tea kettle. This rather odd collection of shapes represents the forms necessary for creating this. Something called a sickle fan, a single-bladed fan. I must confess I've never seen any one of these. They must be interesting to observe, as I'm not quite certain how they handle the counterbalance issues. This is a parallelogram wedges which go together to form this rather morphic electric iron, the large back wedge forming the water reservoir. The truncated cone shapes along with the free-floating sphere go together and form this handheld manual mixer. This combination of truncated sphere and cone ought to be familiar by now. It's the other juicer that I told you about earlier. Even the simplest of objects may have somewhat more complex secondary forms. This odd collection of short cylinders and rectangles go together to form this very familiar object, an iPhone. Now we have a couple of identical products that utilize different shapes. These are modified rectangles and cylinders that are parts of a handheld electrical mixer. And just to prove that you can skin a cat more ways than one, these cylindrical and rectangular forms do exactly the same thing. Here we have several truncated cones and cylinders that go together to form a handheld hairdryer. And this last rather odd collection of forms, a truncated cone, a wedge, and a cylinder, are part of the following product: a tank-type portable vacuum cleaner, motor, and carriage.